how do we ask questions? And so maybe we can talk a little bit about what are some good ways to engage in interviewing with older adults who you may suspect, and maybe what are some bad ways that we know really you should not do. But I think that's important to say, like there's really important ways of engaging in this conversation, and then there's stuff that really doesn't work and we should be identifying. So do you have some experiences about what's good and not good in raising those explorations?
I think the word, if we suspect, we ask. I think it has to be, and back in the 80s, I fought my employer to say, I'm asking everybody, because elder abuse was new back then, and I was getting them all in my face. And on the assessment form was everything from how much you drink, smoke, and practically when they had their last bowel movement. God forbid we can say, is anyone being mean to you at home? And I started to ask those questions because I think we can stereotype and we can say it's the low income, it's the new immigrant, it's the unemployed. It's not. It's the lawyers, the doctors, the social workers. They can be the abusers too. So I think if we routine, in a way, as my mother says, it's not what you say, it's how you say it, that we don't put ourselves in that position where we classify people and say, I think there might be something going on, so we should ask. Rather than ask, open the door, they can still say no. But we've opened the door to say, but I'm safe to come to if later you decide. And I had so many clients come back to me a week later or 6 months later and go, remember when you asked me that question? They weren't on my agenda to be ready to disclose. They had to wait for their own, but I felt like the safe person because I had opened the door to
I'm willing to, if you want to tell me this, I'm here. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the key things is setting up that safe environment, that open environment where if you feel there's something, I'm here.
Well, I think part of it too is that build up and the ability to probe and ask questions. So you don't necessarily come out and say, is your son abusing you? Is he taking your money? You start out by saying, you seem really concerned. I've noticed you seem to be, quite fearful. You've been talking a lot about finances. Like, is there something particular that's concerning you? And kind of doing the questions leading up to that. It's just like as a researcher, you always leave the hard questions about money and things till the end, right? Or sex or those sorts of things, and start with the easy ones, like where do you live and things. So I think it's being able to ask the questions and build up to it, because I think these are very difficult conversations for people. So doing it in a way that kind of is progressive and more gentle.
I think in general, when you're asking people difficult questions, I don't have a lot of experience of asking people about elder abuse, but I have experience of asking about other kinds of abuse or about suicides, are you psychotic? And in those cases, when you're asking about that, we ask everybody these questions. Or sometimes when people are experiencing what you've just told me about, they also are experiencing this. Has that ever happened to you? And then it's like, it's not that I think that you're somehow abnormal. You're like other people have this too. When this happens to them, this also happens. Sometimes when people are living alone and not seeing people very often, there may be some chance that they don't have control over things in their life. Have you found that happened? So it's like making it normal.
Yeah.
Like I always ask this question. You don't have to tell me the answer today. But.
Yeah, and it's more of a scenario as opposed to a direct question. There are, or you tell them what you do in your work. I provide this support, this supports this support. And also another part of my service is the fact that unfortunately some people are abused when they're older, and certain things can happen like physically, financially, and you can actually watch the person react to that conversation, or how even body language or posture or that glint in the eye going, oh my God, I'm not the only one. I think that it is how you broach it, but I think that we don't want to sugarcoat it enough, because I think the direct, you will get an answer. And I think by the people that you're dealing with, males and females, you're talking about language being an issue. Sometimes it takes you 15 minutes to say to somebody that might have a different comprehension, that you might have to explain it in a different way than somebody else. And I think the cultural piece is there's pros or cons, because I've worked with communities where they won't speak to me because I'm not from their community. And I've had communities that I'm not from that will only speak to me, because they figure if they speak with inside, everyone will know, or they think of me as being, I'm not inside.